ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Here's another installment for PreAP Chemistry. Today, we're going to take a look at significant figures. So we're starting to move into the point to where we can actually do some chemistry. And so sig figs is how you will generally see me refer to these or hear me refer to these as. Essentially, a significant figure is any number that we have certainty with, and then the very last place value in the number, we will have some uncertainty. So significant figures, we're looking at chemistry, we don't want to guess at a whole lot of things, and we don't want to have a whole lot of uncertainty in our measurements, and so we use significant figures to actually show people and to read instrumentation correctly so that we have the proper number of significant figures, we have that proper amount of certainty in the numbers that we are going to record. So we're going to look at a couple of different things today with significant figures. The first thing that we'll look at is actually counting sig figs. All right, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and draw a really bad United States, and y'all can laugh about this later, but I mean, it is what it is. I'm not an artist by any stretch of any imagination. And the sad part is I'm probably looking at a drawing right now, but I'm not going to tell you that. But this is the United States. I'm cutting off Canada and probably a few states if you look at that. But we know from the United States that we've got the Pacific Ocean over on the left side, and we've got the Atlantic Ocean over on the right side. Perfect geography. You know this. You've seen it before. So what are we going to do when we count sig figs? Well, number one, we are going to look for a decimal. And what we're going to say is this. Is the decimal present or absent? And that's going to tell us a lot, and essentially what it does tells us which direction we start counting from. All right? Probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense in the context of what I'm giving you, but you'll see here in just a second what I mean by this. Number two is we will start, once we figure out which way we're going to start counting from, we will actually begin counting numbers or start counting numbers at our first non-zero number. And then after that, everything counts. All right, and so the two things we're going to look at when we're counting sig figs, looking for a decimal, is it present or absent, and then whichever way we start counting from, once we start counting numbers at that first non-zero number, we'll count everything after that. We don't have to look and see whether it's a zero or not. All right, and so to give you some context and some examples here, I'll do a couple with you. If I look at the number 523, if I'm going to count the number of significant figures in that number, I look, is a decimal present or absent? It's absent, so we start counting from this direction. That's where I get the A and the P, right? Absent, present for decimals. Tells us which side of the number to start counting from. So I'm going to start counting from the right-hand side, and if I start there, then I look and I say, well, I'm going to start counting at the 3 because it's my first non-zero number. And so 523 would contain 3 significant figures. The next number I will show you is 500. I'm looking at this. Decimal present, decimal absent. It's absent. So again, I start counting from that right-hand side. I am not going to count the zeros. I'm going to count the 5. And so 500 actually only has one significant figure. All right, keeping on going. We'll look at the number 0.0019. So is a decimal present or absent? Well, it's present, so I start counting from the left side this time, and I skip my zeros, not counting the first one, not counting the second one, not counting the third one. This is where I actually start counting at that first non-zero number. So this particular number, 0.0019, has 2 significant figures. All right. I'll do a couple of more examples with you. I'll look at get rid of that, 0.00230. So again, it's present. I'm going to start counting from the right-hand side, or from the left-hand side. Not going to count that 0, not going to count that 0. Here's where I start counting, is that 2. And so 1, 2, 3, they all count at that point. So I have 3 significant figures there. Another example we will look at here is 5010, so 5010. So decimal present or absent. It's an absent decimal, so I'll start from the right-hand side, and that number has 3 significant figures. Hopefully you followed along with that. And then the last one we'll take a look at here, let's look at 6,000. I'm going to get a different color than that yellow. 6,205.00. Well, it's a decimal present or absent. It's present. I'm going to start counting from that direction, and I will start counting at the 6. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and in that particular number, I have 6 significant figures, all right? So counting sig figs, think of your relationship that you've got Pacific Ocean, Atlantic Ocean, tell you which side of the number to start counting from, and then just know that as soon as you start counting, or you start counting at that first non-zero number, and then everything after that does count. Now, what are we going to do with these? So we will look at sig figs in our calculations. How are we going to use these in our calculations? Because we don't want to add certainty by writing a whole bunch of decimal places down in our numbers when we report our answers, all right? And so there's 2 rules that you're going to have to be familiar with. The first one deals with when we add and subtract, right? And when we add and subtract, we round our final answer to the least number of decimal places that appeared in the problem. And so we round to least number of decimal places. All right? So round to the least number of decimal places that appeared in the problem. And that's all we're doing. Nothing too crazy there. Next one we will look at is the rule that we use when we are multiplying or dividing. And in this one, we also are going to round our final answer to the fewest sig figs. All right? We will round to the fewest sig figs. So you'll count all the numbers that you used in the calculation, whichever one had the fewest significant figures, that's how many significant figures you will report your answer to. All right, so addition and subtraction, multiplication and division, we treat them a little bit differently. You are going to have to be able to understand the difference in how you do deal with these when you're doing your calculations. To be honest with you, most of the time, this is going to drive how many significant figures we report our final answer to. All right, and so remember, you're just going to carry all the decimals through, and then when you report your final answer, you will actually have to go back and check and count sig figs throughout your problem or decimal places if you were doing addition and subtraction, and then make sure you report your answer to the correct number of significant figures. All right, okay, last one, sig figs when we are reading equipment. So the other day, y'all got to touch and feel all the equipment, the burettes, the graduated cylinders. So what do we report? Or how do we report sig figs when reading equipment? All right, so hopefully at this point you understand what an increment is. If you don't, an increment, which is a term you will need to know, an increment is the smallest mark on any particular piece of equipment. So you know, you look at a ruler, you've seen a ruler before, right? It'll show 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, 4 inch, but then there's the little lines in between, and each of those lines stands for something, right? And so what's the smallest mark on there actually mean? And that's my smallest increment. We would report 1 decimal place after the smallest increment. So when we are using sig figs and reporting correct number of sig figs with equipment, we will estimate 1 decimal place after the smallest increment. And we're going to practice this in class, so hopefully you have some idea. If you have a ruler or something like that around the house, please go pick it up and look at it, and the term increment will make sense because you'll see the large numbers where they're labeled, and you'll see that it's got little lines in between, and you know normally that stands for, you know, a tenth or a hundredth or whatever it is. Sometimes it's ones, But those are my increments, right? What do those little lines mean? Those are increments, and then I would report 1 decimal place after the smallest increment when I am reading equipment. And that's the correct way to report and record significant figures when you're doing lab work, all right? And we're going to test to make sure that you can do that this week. So hopefully most of this understood, or you understood everything. If you didn't, write some questions down on the left-hand side. Make sure you get those questions answered. You've got to own your learning, ladies and gentlemen. No one else is going to do it for you. You've got to be responsible for it, all right? You've got to own it. You got to own it. Bring your questions to class, and we'll get them all answered. Make sure you get your summary done, and I'll see you there.